ॐ श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्दा गोविन्द सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रय विनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरह कातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। यस्वानुभावमखिलश्रुतिसारमेकम् अध्यात्मदीपमतितितीर्षतां तमोन्धं संसारिणां करुणयाः पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुमुपयामि गुरुं मुनीनां। योगीन्द्राय नमस्तस्मै शुकाय ब्रह्मरूपिणे संसारसत्पदष्टं यो विष्णुरातममुमुचत कालव्यालमुखग्रास त्रासनिर्नाशहेतवे श्रीमद्भागवतं शास्त्रं कलौकीरेण भाषितम् एतस्मादपरं किञ्चित् मनःशुद्ध्यै न विद्यते जन्मान्तरे भवेत् पुण्यं तदा भागवतं लभेत् ज्ञानवैराग्यसम्पूर्णान् हरिभक्तिपरायणान् पूर्वाचार्यातहं वन्दे सम्प्रदायप्रवर्तकान् भगवन्नाम साम्राज्य लक्ष्मी सर्वस्व विग्रहं श्रीमद्बोधेन्द्र योगीन्द्र देशिकेन्द्रम् उपास्महे। कलिकालोचितं धर्मं नाम संकीर्तनात्मकं निर्णेतुमवतीर्णं तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे। हरे रामेति कृष्णेति नाम संकीर्तनं सदा लोकक्षेमाय कुर्वन्तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चातेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि धर्मः प्रोज्झितकैतवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदं तापत्रयोन्मूलनं श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यतेऽत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रूषिभिस्तत्क्षणात् निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखात् अमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। श्रीमद्भागवताख्योऽयं प्रत्यक्षः कृष्ण एव हि स्वीकृतोऽसि मया नाथ मुक्त्यर्थं भवसागरे मनोरथो मदीयोऽयं सफलः सर्वदा त्वया निर्विघ्नेनैव कर्तव्यो दासोऽहं तव केशव। श्रीहरये नमः श्रीहरये नमः श्रीहरये नमः। गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्दा गोविन्दा। Welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Okay, so I think we completed till 13 stanzas in the third chapter, right? Jayashree, can you do 1 to 13? Okay.
Yeah. अद तृतीयोऽध्यायः शूत उवाच अदन जगृहे पौरुषं रूपं भगवान् महदादिभिः सम्पूतं षोडशकलशं सम्पूतं षोडशकलम् आदौ लोकशुश्रूषयाः यस्याम्बसि शयानस्य योगनिद्रां विदन्वदः नाभिहृत् नाभिहृत् आम्बुजादासीत् ब्रह्मा विश्वसृजाम्बदिः यस्यावयवः संस्थानैः कल्पितो लोकविस्तरः तत्त्वै भगवदो रूपं विशुद्धं सत्त्वमूर्जितं पश्यन्त्यदो रूपम् अदप्रशुषा भुजाननाद्भुतं सहस्रमूर्धश्रवणाक्षिनाशिकं मौल्यम्बर कुण्डलोल्लसत् नानावताराणां निदानं बीजमव्ययं यस्यां शांशेन सृज्यन्ते देवधिर्यं नारदयः देवधिर्यं नरादयः स एव प्रथमं देवः कौमारं सर्गमास्थितः सचार दुश्चरं ब्रह्मचर्यमखण्डितं द्वितीयं भवायास्य रसादलकदां महीम् उत्तरीष्यन् उपादत्त यज्ञेश शौकरं बभुः तृतीयं ऋषिसर्गं च देववर्षित्वम् उपेत्य सः तन्त्रं सात्वदमाशष्ट नैष्कर्म्यं कर्मणां यदः
அந்த செகண்ட் லைன்ல தேவர்ஷித்வம் உபேத்ய சஹ
तृतीयं ऋषिसर्गं च देवर्षित्वम् उपेत्य सः तन्त्रं तन्त्रं सात्वदमाशष्ट नैष्कर्म्यं कर्मणां यदः दुर्ये धर्मकला सर्गे नरनारायणावृषि भूत्वात् शमोभेदम् अगरोत् दुश्चरं तपः पञ्चमः कपिलो नाम सिद्धेशः कालविप्लुदम् ब्रोवाच सुरये शाङ्क्यं तत्त्वदग्राम विनिर्णयं तत्त्वग्राम विनिर्णयं षष्ठे अद्रेर् अभत्यत्वं षष्ठे अद्रेर् अभत्यत्वं वृदः प्राप्तो न सूयया आन्वीक्षिकीम् अलर्काय प्रह्लादादिभ्य ऊचिवान् ततः सप्तम आहूत्यां रुचेर्यज्ञोभ्य जायत स यामात्यैः सुरगणैः अबात् स्वायम्भुवान्दरम्
அந்த சுரகணைஹி இங்க விசர்க்க அந்த ரக்கு பதிலா
கரெக்ட் स यामात्य सुरगणैः अबात्य स्वायम्भुवान्दरम् अष्टमे मेरुदेव्यां तु नाभिर्जाद उरुक्रमः तर्शयन् वर्धम धीराणां सर्वाश्रम नमस्कृतम्.
And the first line mattum, when you just go to the first stanza, the last line, and you said loka sisrikshayaha. You said there's no visarga there, okay? Just loka sisrikshaya, okay?
Okay.
All right. So we'll start with 14. So let me just see here. Amuchechi, you can be a student, and Priya Srikumar, you can be a student. Okay, so stanza 14. ऋषिभिर याचितो भेजे, नवमं पार्थिवं वपुः दुग्धेमाम ओषधीर. You can say it together, दुग्धेमाम ओषधीर or dugdemam oshadhir vipraha. So that is goes away, visarga and comma, vipraha. Tenayam sa ushattamaha. So we were seeing, like this one, the Sutta Pauranika is talking about two things, two questions that, the Shaunaka Maharishis and everybody asked. One of them they asked is, the Lord takes several incarnations, so what is the essence of what are the various activities of the Lord? And then they also say that even the greatest of sages like Narada talk about all the incarnations of the Lord and what the Lord does in everything. So he's just going through the list, right? So we started first from the number one, which was the Purusha, and then we kept going through the various things here, right? So right now, here the last one we saw was Nabher Jata, we saw was the Rishabha Yogishwara. So now in the fourth one, he says, then in the 14th stanza, in the 9th incarnation, the Lord actually took the body of Prithu Chakravarti. So this came in the Dashakam 18 of Narayaniam. Prithu Charitram was there, right? So where, the Vena and Anga come, and then from there Prithu comes, because what happens is it was the earlier time of the civil, and we'll see the Prithu Charitam as a separate chapter, so we won't go into the details of this. So when he came, when the earth was not ready for cultivation, so he really, that's how the word Prithivi came about, because he established it, so to be ready for cultivation. That is the 9th avataram of the Lord, is as Prithu Chakravarti. ऋषिभिर्याचितो भेजे नवमं पार्थिवं वपुः दुग्धे मामोषधीर्विप्राः तेनायं स उषत्तमः.
ऋषिभिर्याचितो बेजे नवमं पार्थिवं वपुः दुग्धे मामौषधीर्विप्राः स्तेनायं स उषत्तमः.
ओषधीर्, not औषधीर्, ओषधीर्विप्राः.
Okay. ऋषिभिर्याचितो बेजे नवमं पार्थिवं वपुः दुग्धे मामोषधीर्विप्राः स्तेनायं स उषत्तमः.
Couple. So the Parthivam, I'm hearing a Parthimam sound. Okay. The first Navam Parthivam Vapuhu.
Parthivam.
Okay. B as in Victor. And then the second line, the Vipraha you are putting, right? So that is goes away. Okay. So it's to replace the is. So it's Tenayam sa Ushattamaha.
दुग्धे मामोषधीर्विप्राः तेनायं स उषत्तमः.
ऋषिभिर्याजितो भेजे नवमं पार्थिवं वपुः दुग्धे मामोषधीर्विप्राः तेनायं स उषत्तमः. ऋषिभिर्याजितो भेजे नवमं पार्थिवं वपुः दुग्धे मामोषधीर्विप्राः तेनायं स उषत्तमः.
15. Rupam sa jagrihe matsyam, chakshushodhadi samplave navyaropya mahi mayam. So that ma that is there, we'll break it. Mahi mayam im, next word starts with the a. Apad vaivaswatam manum. So he says the 10th avatar. So like I was telling you all earlier, right? When we keep Navaratri Golu, we first start with Matsya avatar, right? Because that's the Bommai we have. That's the doll we have, right? We can't help. There is no doll of Pitru Chakravarti or Rishabha Yogishwara or Purusha, right? So we start with what we have. So anyway, he says Matsya avataram, he says the 10th avataram of the Lord, where in the transition period between Chakshusha Manu and Vaivaswata Manu, the Lord actually incarnated. When the entire thing was flooded, he came in the form of Matsya and then recovered it back, and then also taught all the information to the next Manu, which is the current Manu, which is the Vaivaswata Manu. So that was what the Matsya avataram is, which is the 10th avataram. Rupam sajagrihe matsyam chakshushodhadi samplave navyaropya mahimayam apadvaivaswatam manum.
रूपं सजगृहे मात्स्यं चाक्षुषोधति संप्लवे नाव्यारोप्य महीमय्याम् अपात्वैवस्वतं मनुम्. रूपं सजगृहे मात्स्यं चाक्षुषोधति संप्लवे नाव्यारोप्य महीमय्याम् अपात्वैवस्वतं मनुम्.
रूपं सजगृहे मात्स्यं चाक्षुषोदधि संप्लवे नाव्यारोप्य महीमय्याम् अपाद्वैवस्वतं मनुम्. रूपं सजगृहे मात्स्यं चाक्षुषोदधि संप्लवे नाव्यारोप्य महीमय्याम् अपाद्वैवस्वतं मनुम्.
Surasuranam udadhim, matnatam mandarachalam Dadre Kamatha Rupena Prishta Ekadashe Vibhuhu. So Ekadashe, the 11th incarnation of the Lord, is in the form of a Kamatha Rupena, is in the form of a tortoise, right? Whose shell actually served as the base for the Mandara mountain for the churning of the Amrit between the Devas and the Asuras. So that's a Kurma Avataram, is the 11th Avataram here. Surasuranam Udadhim Matnatam Mandarachalam Dadhe Kamatha Rupena Prishta Ekadashe Vibhuhu.
सुरासुराणामुदधिं मग्नदां मन्दराचलं दद्रे कमठरूपेण पृष्ठ एकादशे विभुः सुरासुराणामुदधिं मग्नदां मन्दराचलं दद्रे कमठरूपेण पृष्ठ एकादशे विभुः
सुरासुराणामुदधिं मथ्नधां मन्दराजलं दध्रे कमठरूपेण पृष्ठ एकादशे विभुः सुरासुराणामुदधिं मथ्नधां मन्धराचलं दध्रे कमठरूपेण पृष्ठ एकादशे विभुः
Dhanvantaram Dwadashamam, Trayodasamam Evacha Apayayat Suran Anyan, if you want to break it, Suran Anyan, Mohinya Mohayan Striya. Today, Panguni Uttram, right? So we celebrate that because Dhanvantri came up from the ocean, and then it's also the Ayyappa incarnation is there. So that is what he's talking here. Is the 12th and the 13th avataram. You came in as Dhanvantari, where you came out of the ocean with Amrite Kalasham. We saw that in the 28th Dashakam of Narayanim, and Dhanvantri comes up, right? So that's the 12th avataram. The 13th avataram is as Mohini. So that is also the incarnation of the Lord as Mohini, and eventually Ayyappa was born. So that incarnated, right? So that is the 12th and the 13th avataram is Dhanvantri and Mohini. Dhanvantaram Dwadashamam Trayodashamameva cha Apayayat Surananyan Mohinya Mohayan Striya.
Dhanvantaram Dwadashamam Trayodashamameva cha Apayayat Surananyan Mohinya Mohayan Striya. Dhanvantaram Dwadashamam Trayodashamameva cha Apayayat Surananyan Mohinya Mohayan Striya.
सुरा धान्वन्तरं द्वादशमं त्रयोदशममेव च अपाययत्सुरानन्यान् मोहिन्या मोहयन् स्त्रिया धान्वन्तरं द्वादशमं त्रयोदशममेव च अपाययत्सुरान् अन्यान् मोहिन्या मोहयन् स्त्रिया
Chaturdasham Narasimham, Bibrat Daitendram Urjitam. You can say Bibrat Daitendram Urjitam. Dadara Karajair Vakshasyerakam. So you can put a plus there, say it together. Vakshasyerakam Kata Krityata. Kridyatha. Chaturdasham Narasimham Bibrat Daitendramurjitam Dadara Karajair Vakshasyerakam Kata Krityatha.
Chadurdasham Narasimham Bibradaityendramurjidam Dadara Karajair Vakshasyarakam Kadagridyatha. Chadurdasham Narasimham Bibradaityendramurjidam Dadara Karajair Vakshasyarakam Kadagridyatha.
चतुर्दशं नारसिंहं बिभ्रद्दैत्येन्द्र ऊर्जितं ददारकरजैर्वक्षस्येरकां कडकृद्यथा चतुर्दशं नारसिंहं बिभ्रद्दैत्येन्द्र दैत्येन्द्रमूर्जितं ददारकरजैर्वक्षस्येरकां कडकृद्यथा.
And each of this is giving a very brief description, right? So Daitya Indra, who was the head of the Daityas, Hiranyakashipu, Karajair Vakshas, he tore open his chest, right? That was, and then got rid of that Hiranyakashipu here. 19. Panchadasham Vamanakam, Kritvagat Advaram. If you want to break, you can break at that da. Kritvagat Advaram Bhalehe Padatrayam Yachamanaha Pratyaditsus Trivishtapam. That is, you can take a break. Pratyaditsus Trivishtapam. She says the 15th incarnation, you took the form of a dwarf Brahmin. So that's where the Vamana avataram there. And then, you went to the yagam that the Maharaja Bali was doing. And then, you asked for only three steps of land, but eventually you took over all the 3 worlds. You were able to cover with it and get rid of Bali's pride. Panchadasham Vamanakam Kritvagad Advaram Bhalehe Padatrayam Yachamanaha Pratyaditsustrivistapam.
Panchadasham Vamanakam Kritva Gadadhvaram Balehe Padatrayam Yajamanaha Pratyaditsustrivishtabam. Panchadasham Vamanakam Kritva Gadadhvaram Balehe Padatrayam Yajamanaha Pratyaditsutrivishtabam.
पञ्चदशं वामनकं कृत्वा अध्वरं बलेः पदत्रयं याचमानः प्रत्यादित्सुत्रिविष्टभम् पञ्चदशं वामनकं कृत्वा अध्वरं बलेः पदत्रयं याचमानः प्रत्यादित्सुत्रिविष्टभम्.
The second last word, Priya, Pratyaditsus Trivishtam is sound there, okay?
प्रत्यादित्सुस्त्रिविष्टभम्.
Avatare Shodashame Pashyan Brahmadruho Nripan Tris Sapta Kritvah Kupito, comma. Then the Nihi is there. So you have to say that Visarga. Nihi Kshatram Akaron Mahim. If you want to break it, that Kshatram Akaron Mahim. So you're saying in the 16th incarnation, you came as Bhrigupati, you came as Lord Parashurama, and then you got rid of the Kshatriya class. 21 times you got rid of the Kshatriya class because they were actually rebelling against the Brahmins, and the class was actually doing all the yajna and everything. The Kshatriyas had gotten more power, so you took that incarnation as Parashurama to get rid of all those evil Kshatriyas completely. And it stopped when the transition to Rama Avataram happened anyway. So Avatare Shodashame Pashyan Brahmadruho Nripan Trisapta Kritvah Kupito Nihikshatram Mahim.
Avatare Shodashame Pashyan Brahmadruho Nripan Trisapta Kritvah Kupido Nihikshatram Mahim. Avatare Shodashame Pashyan Brahmadruho Nripan Trisapta Kritvah Kupido Nihikshatram Mahim.
अवतारे षोडशमे पश्यन् ब्रह्मद्रुहो नृपान् त्रिसप्तकृत्वः कुपितो निःक्षत्रामकरोन्महीम् अवतारे षोडशमे पश्यन् ब्रह्मद्रुहो नृपान् त्रिसप्तकृत्वः कुपितो निःक्षत्रामकरोन्महीम्.
Tatas Saptadashe Jataha, Satyavathyam Parasharat Chakre Vedatarosh Shakaha. So because we're going to stop in the middle of that line, you put a visarga there. If you're saying it continuous, you don't have to put the visarga. So Shakaha, comma. Drishtva Pumsolpa Medasaha. Pumsa Alpa Medasaha. Pumsolpa Medasaha. She's saying the 17th incarnation of you is as Veda Vyasa. Is Vyasa himself. That's why we say Vyasaya Vishnu Rupaya, Vyasa Rupaya Vishnu. And a little bit later, we'll kind of explain. I'll touch on like how the Lord comes as Vyasa, but again he's talking about the Narayana again, right? So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But anyway, for now, the 17th incarnation is coming as Vyasa. You are born to Parashara and Satyavati, right? Parashara, we'll see about Vyasa Charitam, Veda Charitam, which is going to come later. So we won't get into the details here. So he was born there, and your purpose of birth was because people were becoming less intelligent. So they were not able to read the Vedas. So you came in there to split the Vedas and then to give all this information to people. Avatare Shodashame Pashya, Tatas Saptadashe Jatah Satyavatyam Parasharat Chakre Vedataroshakaha Drishtva Pumsolpamedasaha.
Tadasaptadashe Jadaha Satyavatyam Parasharad Chakre Vedataroshakaha Drishtva Pumsolpamedasaha. Tadasaptadashe Jadaha Satyavatyam Parasharad चक्रे वेदतरोः शाखाः दृष्ट्वा पुंसोऽल्पमेधसः
ततः सप्तदशे जातः सत्यवत्यां पराशरात् चक्रे वेदतरो शाखाः दृष्ट्वा पुंसोऽल्पमेधसः ततः सप्तदशे जातः सत्यवत्यां पराशरात् चक्रे वेदतरो शाखाः दृष्ट्वा पुंसोऽल्पमेधसः
Nara devatvam apannaha. If you want to break it, the devatvam apannaha, comma, sura karya chikirshaya samudra nigrahadini, short e, comma, chakre viryanyatah param. So in the 18th incarnation, you were born as Sri Rama. So you came there because you actually there's a lot of work that was actually required for the demigods to get rid of Ravana and all the other asuras who were there. So you were born as Sri Rama to do all that. And also, you also showed your superhuman powers by splitting the ocean, right? And then by getting rid of Ravana, the asura, who was on the other side of the sea. This is the Rama avataram here. नरदेवत्वमापन्नः सुरकार्यचिकीर्षया समुद्रनिग्रहादीनि चक्रे वीर्यान्यतः परम्
नरदेवत्वमापन्नः सुरकार्यचिकीर्षया समुद्रनिग्रहादीनि चक्रे वीर्यान्नतः परम् नरदेवत्वमापन्नः सुरकार्यचिकीर्षया समुद्रनिग्रहादीनि चक्रे वीर्यान्यतः परम्
नरदेवत्वमापन्नः सुरकार्यचिकीर्षया समुद्रनिग्रहादीनि चक्रे वीर्याण्यतः परम् नरदेवत्वमापन्नः सुरकार्यचिकीर्षया समुद्रनिग्रहादीनि चक्रे वीर्याण्यतः परम्
एकोनविंशे विंशतिमे वृष्णिषु शॉर्ट प्राप्य जन्मनि रामकृष्णाविति भुवो Bhagavan Aharat Bharam. If you want to break at that in Bhagavan Aharat Bharam. So in the 19th and the 20th incarnations, you came as Lord Balarama and you came as Krishna in the Vrishni, in the Yadava dynasty. And by doing this, you got rid of the burden of the world. Right? So that's giving the quick summary there. एकोनविंशे विंशति में वृष्णिषु प्राप्य जन्मनि रामकृष्णाविति भुवो भगवान् अहरद्भरम्
एकोनविंशे विंशति में वृष्णिषु प्राप्य जन्मनि रामकृष्णाविति भुवो भगवान् अहरद्भरम् एकोनविंशे विंशति में वृष्णिषु प्राप्य जन्मनि रामकृष्णाविति भुवो भगवान् अहरद्भरम्
एकोनविंशे विंशति में वृष्णिषु प्राप्य जन्मनि रामकृष्णाविति भुवो भगवान् अहरद्भरम् एकोनविंशे विंशति में वृष्णिषु प्राप्य जन्मनि रामकृष्णाविति भुवो भगवान् अहरद्भरम्.
So the next one is what gets interesting, right? Where did we stop here? Yeah. Tatah kalau sampravritte, sammohaya sura dvisham buddho namna janasutaha, kikateshu bhavishyati, both short u and short e. So here it gets interesting, right? So this is written in, this was, of course, Bhagavatam was official when Parikshit was communicated by Shuka Brahman was when Krishna departed, which was in 3500 BC. So we're like about 6,000 years away, right? So this was already written. I mean, of course, Buddha came a little, early in the thing. But it says, the 19th, he says, when the Kali Yuga starts, he says what happens is this people who are following the Vedic principles, like the yajna and everything. So in the olden days, there used to be the principle of animal sacrifice, but it was not like you can just bring any animal and just slaughter the animal. There were certain ways and methodologies by which they used to do it. So the animal also gets liberated, right? So, but they say anything when it becomes extreme, the core principle or the fundamentals are lost. So people just blindly start believing things and start doing things. So they say it became a point where the Vedic sacrifices used to become like slaughterhouse, because they used to just believe that you should just bring animals and kill animals, right? And that's the way you can actually attain heaven. And it all became slaughterhouse. and nobody understood the true meaning. There was non-violence, people were eating meat and everything. So you say, you then incarnated as Buddha, or you are going to be incarnated as Buddha in Gaya to son of Anjana, and you're going to be teaching the principles of non-violence to everybody there. Because he says, sometimes, when you can't, and the reason they're saying here is, they say the people who are less intelligent at the time when the Kali Kalam started, people who were less intelligent, they did not believe in God, they did not believe in the Vedas, they did not believe in anything. So when somebody is like that, you can't convert them, or you can't preach things by going and teaching the same thing. So somebody has to get to their level to make them understand. So you went in with a very simple principle saying, don't do any himsa, follow the path of ahimsa. Like, do good to others, be good to everybody, which is easy for people to follow, because they say people were dumb, right? So they say you really dumbed it down for people, and then say you just follow this, that is good. Because he says this then becomes the, very clearly it says, it becomes the preliminary step for them to go towards realization of the God. Because you have to get them started. You tell them go pray to God, and people were not believing in it. So you got them to follow the basic things, they started believing. And the interesting thing they say is, the people who were atheists, who didn't believe in God, they started following these principles, because they said there's no God, but I'm going to follow. But they will follow you as Buddha, as their God, right? So the people who follow that, because at the end of the day, you are only the same. Buddha is, he's also saying, you are Narayana's avataram only. There's no difference. It's just one of your incarnations. So people may say Buddha is not God, I don't believe in God, but they believe in Buddha as God and worship Buddha, right? So that's what, that way you trick the people, it says. You tricked people into believing there is no God and this delusion, but in reality, they were actually worshipping you, because it was a stepping stone for them towards God's realization in the Kali Yuga. So, tatah kalau sampravritte sammohaya suradvisham buddho namna janasutah kikateshu bhavishyati.
ततः कलौ सम्प्रवृत्ते सम्मोहाय सुरद्विषां बुद्धो नाम्ना जनः कीकटेषु भविष्यति. ततः कलौ सम्प्रवृत्ते सम्मोहाय सुरद्विषां बुद्धो नाम्ना जनः कीकटेषु भविष्यति.
ततः कलौ सम्प्रवृत्ते सम्मोहाय सुरद्विषां बुद्धो नाम्ना जनः कीकटेषु भविष्यति. ततः कलौ सम्प्रवृत्ते सम्मोहाय सुरद्विषां बुद्धो नाम्ना जनः कीकटेषु भविष्यति.
Bhavishyati, short e, okay, Priya, at the end.
भविष्यति.
Athasau yuga sandhyayam, dasyu prayeshu rajasu janita Vishnu yashaso, namna kalkir jagatpati. See that the conjunction of the two yugas, when the Kali Yuga is getting over, and the next time the Satya Yuga is going to be transitioning, then you are going to be born as a son of Vishnu Yasa, and to him you'll be born as Kalki Avataram. And then that will happen when the rulers who are actually there everywhere will completely become plunderers, and they will, get to that level of extreme. At the time, you will take Avataram as Kalki to get rid of all of them. Athasau yuga sandhyayam dasyu prayeshu rajasu janita Vishnu yashaso namna kalkir jagatpatihi.
अथासौ युगसन्ध्यायां दस्यु प्रायेषु राजसु जनिता विष्णुयशसो नाम्ना कल्किर्जगत्पतिः. अथासौ युगसन्ध्यायां दस्यु प्रायेषु राजसु जनिता विष्णुयशसो नाम्ना कल्किर्जगत्पतिः.
अथासौ युगसन्ध्यायां दस्यु प्रायेषु राजसो जनिता विष्णुयशसो नाम्ना कल्किर्जगत्पतिः. अथासौ युगसन्ध्यायां दस्यु प्रायेषु राजसो जनिता विष्णुयशसो नाम्ना कल्किर्जगत्पतिः.
Just switch. Anandji, you can be a student, and Shobha, you can be a student. Avatara hyasankheyaha. So again, put a visarga there. You won't have it, and then a comma. Hares sattva nider dvijaha yata vidasinah kulyaha, comma, sarasasyus sahasrashaha. So each of the visarga you replace with the is. Sarasasyu sahasrashaha. So he says, the avatarams of yours, asankyaha, it cannot be counted. So what we are even saying here, he says, are only a list of these 20 or 22 avatarams which are listed. Your avatarams are like countless, just like there is water which is dripping out of an, a container which has no limit, which has no capacity. It's constantly dripping. There's tons of avatarams which happens. And the next stanza itself, he says that all the lot of the rishis, the manus, the demigods who happen, the descendants of the Manu, whoever they are, the Prajapatis, all of them are also your avataram. It is just that the kind of avataram is different. It is like what portion of your energy is actually getting incarnated. There's no count to the number of avatarams you're having. That's kind of the next two stanzas.
Rajesh,
Yeah.
so somewhere I heard there is not going to be avataram in Kali Yuga. Is that right?
No,
or
this one says there are two main avatarams listed here,
Kali
Buddha
Yuga?
and Kalki.
Okay, so Kalki is at the end of Kali Yuga, right?
Yeah. And so this one, like it says, there are a lot of other avatarams which are constantly happening, right?
Even in
now, there
Kali
are avatarams which are constantly happening, but they're saying the main avatarams, the main ones which are going to make a significant impact, right? So like it'll come a little bit later, but you can talk about the impact of the avatarams, right? When you think of the big impact of the avatarams, there are only two main avatarams in Kalki, this is Buddha and as Kalki, in the Kali Yuga, I mean, as Kalki and Buddha. अवतारा ह्यसङ्ख्येयाः हरे सत्त्वनिधे द्विजाः यथा विदासिनः कुल्याः सरसस्युसहस्रशः.
अवताराह्य सङ्ख्येयाः हरे सत्त्वनिधेर्द्विजाः यदा विदासीन कुल्याः सरसस्युसहस्रशः. अवताराह्य सङ्ख्येयाः हरे सत्त्वनिधेर्द्विजाः यदा विदासीन कुल्याः सरसस्युसहस्रशः.
अवताराय सङ्ख्येयाः हरे सत्त्वनिधेर्द्विजाः यदा विदासिनः कुल्याः सरसस्युसहस्रशः. अवताराय सङ्ख्येयाः हरे सत्त्वनिधेर्द्विजाः यदा विदासिनः कुल्याः सरसस्युसहस्रशः.
ऋषयो मनवो देवाः, put a visarga there, you won't have it, devaha. Manu putra mahojasah kala sarve harereva, sa prajapatayas tata. Like all the Manu, Prajapatis, all of this avatarams of you only, just different levels of energy. That's why not everything is listed. So there's constant avatarams always happening, right? Rishayo manavo devaha manuputra mahojasah kala sarve harereva sa prajapatayastata.
ऋषयो मनवो देवाः मनुपुत्रा महोजसः कला सर्वे हरेरेव स प्रजापतयस्तदा. ऋषयो मनवो देवाः मनुपुत्रा महोजसः कला सर्वे हरेरेव स प्रजापतयस्तदा.
Tatha. The last.
ऋषयो मनव.
What are you saying, Shubha? Anuji, the last line, tatha. I heard tada. The tha. Last
Double ta?
Yeah, second ta. Tatha.
Tadha.
Yeah.
Okay.
ऋषयो मनवो देवाः मनुपुत्रा महोजसः कला सर्वे हरेरेव स प्रजापतयस्तथा. ऋषयो मनवो देवाः मनुपुत्रा महोजसः कला सर्वे हरेरेव स प्रजापतयस्तथा.
28. Ethe.
ராஜேஷ் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் லைன்ல தேவாகான்னு இருக்கே அது சொல்லணுமா விசர்க்கம்?
If you're pausing there, you have to say.
Okay.
Okay. So anytime we're adding that, when I'm telling you to add a visarga, is because if you're pausing, if you're not pausing it, like Rishayo manavo deva manuputra mahojasah, you don't have to add the visarga.
Thank you.
28. Ete chamsha kalah pumsah, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam, Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. This is where he's answering and summarizing a lot of the stuff. He says, like we know, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata, where Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, saying any time there is, unrighteousness which is actually happening, or I have to uplift the righteous people, I will take incarnations. This is all these avatarams which are mentioned up to this, including what is mentioned in the stanza 27, Manu, Prajapati, everything. He says the only difference is how much of the energy of the Lord is coming in as the avatar. He says that is the only difference. Like the example they give is, you have the main grid which is supplying electricity. That same grid is supplying electricity to the bulb which is shining in my room, as well as to any factory which is producing automobiles or anything you want, right? It is all coming from the main grid. But the amount of energy required for the bulb is different from the amount of energy which is required to run a factory, because the purpose is different, right? So he says each of these incarnations are like that. It is for the purpose of the incarnation. The Lord only comes with what is required to deliver that incarnation, right? However, he says, although there are all these incarnations, he says Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. He says Krishna Avataram is the only one where he is the Lord himself. Then the question comes, why is it an avataram? The reason it is an avataram is because the word avataram is defined as incarnation in this planet. That's all. Like Lord stepping in to do something, right? That's the only difference. So because of which he says it can be considered an avataram, but it is not like other avataram where they had limited powers. Like Vyasa could only do certain things in that avataram, because that was the purpose of Vyasa's incarnation. Narada was also an incarnation. He has a certain purpose, but he says Krishna avataram did not have any limits. Right? And even now, whenever I still teach Narayanam class, I always say that there's nothing that Krishna cannot do. Of course, a lot more Krishna can do, but even then, Krishna is containing himself what he can do even in this presence, because he doesn't want to, because he's the owner ahead of the world, right? So anyway, so that's what is clarifying here, saying all of these are avatarams, but the purpose is different, because of which the spiritual potency of the Lord, which is coming in the avataram, changes depending on the purpose. But Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. There's no doubt about it. Krishna Avataram is the Lord himself coming on, right? As an avataram. Ete chamshakalah pumsah Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge.
Ete chamshakala pumsah Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indradi Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. Ete chamshakala pumsah Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indradi Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge.
एदेचांशकला पुंसः कृष्णस्तु भगवान् स्वयं इन्द्रारिव्याकुलं लोकं मृडयन्ति युगे युगे एदेचांशकला पुंसः कृष्णस्तु भगवान् स्वयं इन्द्रारिव्याकुलं लोकं मृडयन्ति युगे युगे
जन्म गुह्यं भगवतो य एतत् प्रयतो नरः सायं प्रातः गृणन् भक्त्या दुःख ग्रामात् विमुच्यते. I think it's pretty obvious. This has all the avatarams which are mentioned, right? So in one shot, you can cover all the incarnations. So he says, whoever chants this Sayam and Prat, whoever chants this in the morning and evening with bhakti will get all the relief, will get utmost devotion, because in one place you are covering all the avatarams, right? So Janma guhyam bhagavato yayetat prayato naraha Sayam pratar grinan bhaktya dukkha gramat vimuchyate.
Janmaguhyam bhagavato edat prayato naraha Sayam pratar grinan bhaktya dukkha gramat vimuchyate. Janmaguhyam bhagavato edat prayato naraha Sayam pratar grinan bhaktya dukkha gramat vimuchyate.
जन्मगुह्यं भगवतो ये दत्प्रयदो नरः सायं प्रार्थ गृणन् भक्त्या दुःखग्रामात् विमुच्यते जन्मगुह्यं भगवतो ये दत्प्रयदो नरः सायं प्रार्थ गृणन् भक्त्या दुःखग्रामात् विमुच्यते.
एतत् रूपं भगवतो ह्य रूपस्य चिदात्मनः माया गुणैर विरचितम mahadadibir atmani, short e. So again, this kind of next few stanzas I'm going to give a few other clarifications. So like, he says that, see, the Virat form, of course, the Lord who has all these things, right? And when you go to the full form of the Lord as Virat Rupa, he says the one who's everything, he cannot have a form, right? So he says you cannot describe the form of a person, right? Of such a person who is there. So he says the Virat form of the Lord is introduced only for people who cannot think beyond. See, for us, it's so hard to even contemplate some basic things we don't understand, right? Now, how can you imagine someone who's created the entire universe? We cannot. So we're all ordinary people from that perspective, right? So for us, for people like us, he says the Virat form is given where they say you imagine the form, where the hand is this, where the leg is this, because we can only understand human forms. So you give that human form to the Lord, and then you put the various worlds in that and give it, because it's only for people who are very, basic worshippers who don't have the jnanam to understand the supremacy of the Lord. The Virat form is described. He's going to describe a few other things as well, but in this, he's saying that's what the Virat form is. So don't think that is the form of the Lord. You can't contain the Lord to just that form, right? Yeah. एतद्रूपं भगवतो ह्यरूपस्य चिदात्मनः माया गुणैर्विरचितं महदाधिभिरात्मनि.
एतद्रूपं भगवतो ह्यरूपस्य चिदात्मनः माया गुणैर्विरचितं महदादिभिरात्मनि. महदादिभिरात्मनि. एतद्रूपं भगवतो ह्यरूपस्य चिदात्मनः माया गुणैर्विरचितं महदादिभिरात्मनि.
एतद्रूपं भगवतो यरूपस्य चिदात्मनः माया गुणैर्विरचितं महदादिभिरात्मनि. महदादिभिर आत्मनि அப்படி சொல்லிக்கலாம் அல்லவா?
ஆமா.
महदादिभिरात्मनि. एतद्रूपं भगवतो यरूपस्य चिदात्मनः माया गुणैर्विरचितं महदादिभिरात्मनि.
यथा नभसि मेघौघो रेणुर्वा पार्थिवो निले एवं द्रष्टरि दृश्यत्वम. So that ma that is there, you first put an m, drishyatvam, next word starts with the a. Aropitam abuddhibihi. So he gives an example of this, like our ability to not be distinguished, right? So the example they say is, when you look up, you see the clouds. Now the clouds are there. You see the clouds moving. You say the sky is cloudy today because the clouds are actually moving everywhere. You're seeing it. Then you say the air is dirty. You go somewhere, you say there's pollution, right? Now what he says is, the air itself is the air is very pure actually. There's dirt. The air is moving the dirt. When the air is moving the dirt, it looks like pollution to you. The air is moving the clouds. When the air is moving the clouds, you see clouds everywhere, so it looks cloudy. But he says, but the air is just what it is. It is the clouds are there, the dirt is there. But we don't realize that they are separate. He says that is how it is. You don't realize that you are different from the Lord, right? And he says you cannot understand this difference between spirit and body. He's just giving this as an example, right? And says you cannot even understand the spirit or the soul who's sitting inside of you. How can you understand the great Brahman? It is so difficult for us to contemplate that. So he says, don't worry about it. But he says it's not that easy, right? It's because the mind cannot contemplate these things, because of why they were describing about that, the Virat Swarupam and everything, so that you can imagine what you can. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? You are just imagining it. At least you'll imagine that way and you'll pray to the Lord. So, yathanabasi meghaugo renurva parthivo nile evam drashtari drishyatvam aropitama buddhibihi.
यदा नभसि मेघौघो रेणुर्वा पार्थिवो निले एवं दृष्टरिदृश्यत्वम् आरोपितमबुद्धिभिः. यदा नभसि मेघौघो रेणुर्वा पार्थिवो निले एवं दृष्टरिदृश्यत्वम् आरोपितमबुद्धिभिः.
Anandji, that second line, evam drashtari.
एवं दृश्यत्वम्. Thank you.
यथा नभसि मेघौघो रेणुर्वा पार्थिवो निले एव द्रष्टरिदृश्यत्वम् आरोपितम् अबुद्धिभिः. यथा नभसि मेघौघो रेणुर्वा पार्थिवो निले एवं द्रष्टरिदृश्यत्वम् आरोपितम् अबुद्धिभिः.
The next two I'll say the meaning together. Atah param yad avyaktam. You can put the im at that ma. Yad avyaktam, comma. Next word starts with the a. Abhyuda guna vyuhitam. Adrishtashruta vastutvat, comma. Sajivo yat punarbhavah. Atah param yad avyaktam. Abhyuda guna vyuhitam. Adrishtashruta vastutvat. Sajivo yat punarbhavah.
अतः परं यदव्यक्तम् अव्यूढगुणव्यूहितम् अदृष्टाश्रुतवस्तुत्वात् सजीवो यत्पुनर्भवः. अतः परं यदव्यक्तम् अव्यूढगुणव्यूहितम् अदृष्टाश्रुतवस्तुत्वात् सजीवो यत्पुनर्भवः.
अतः परं यदव्युक्तम् अव्यूढगुणव्यूहितम् अदृष्टाश्रुतवस्तुत्वात् सजीवो युत्पुनर्भवः.
Yat punarbhavah. Last word.
सजीवो यत्पुनर्भवः. अतः परं यदव्युक्तम् अव्यूढगुणव्यूहितम् अदृष्टाश्रुतवस्तुत्वात् सजीवो यत्पुनर्भवः.
Shobha, the first word mata yad avyaktam. Okay. Atah param yad avyaktam.
अतः परं यदव्युक्तम् अलवा.
Avyaktam. Vyaktam.
अव्यक्तं. Sure. Thanks.
Okay. 33. Yatre me sadasat rupe, sad asat rupe. 3 words there. Sadasat rupe, comma. Prati shiddhe swasamvida. Abidhyayatmani. So that S symbol is coming. So you kind of say the whole thing together. Abidhyayatmani krite, comma. Iti tat brahma darshanam. So he says here that the gross, what is visible for us, right? This is the gross form of the body we have, which is the stula shariram that we have. So he says, in addition to the stula shariram, what we don't realize is there is something which is avyaktam, which is actually not comprehensible for us, right? A subtle form of the body, which is a sukshma shariram, which is there. He says that which is without any shape, abhyuda, and it is actually unseen, adrishta, because you cannot see your stula shariram. Ashruta, you cannot hear anything about your stula shariram, right? You can hear me because I have a gross body right now, right? You can see me, but none of the stula shariram is not visible. But he says, but all of this is there. Otherwise, he says you cannot have rebirth, because for you to have rebirth, your soul needs a carrier, right? So the stula shariram is the carrier which is there. So first of all, you have this sukshma, the stula shariram you have, then you have the sukshma shariram, which is what is the carrier after death. So these two are there. Then he says, in addition to that, the third one, he says, there is this Atmani, which is your soul, which is actually inside of all of that. That is another layer which is actually behind all of these things. So he says, only when a person comes to the realization that I have a Stula Shariram, I have a Sukshma Shariram, and then I have an Atma, which is all kind of, it may all look connected, but they're all independent of each of this. Only then that person will come to the realization that he's one with the Lord. So till that point, we keep thinking that we are this body. That's what he's describing here. So yatre me sadasatrupe pratishidhe swasambhidha abidhyayatmani krite iti tat brahma darshanam.
यत्र मे सदसद्रूपे प्रतिष्ठिते ससंविदा अविद्येयात्मनि कृते इति तद्ब्रह्मदर्शनम्. यत्र मे सदसद्रूपे प्रतिष्ठिते संविदा अविद्येयात्मनि कृते इति तत्सब्रह्मदर्शनम्.
यत्रे मे सदसद्रूपे प्रतिषिद्धे स्वयंविदा अविद्यायात्मनि कृते इति तद्ब्रह्मदर्शनम्. यत्रे मे
स्वसंविदा. संविदा.
यत्रे मे सदसद्रूपे प्रतिषिद्धे स्वसंविदा अविद्यायात्मनि कृते इति तद्ब्रह्मदर्शनम्.
Yadhyesho parata.
Rajesh, one quick question. Avidyayatmani or avidyayatmani?
Avidya. So lack of knowledge. So vidya. Avidyayatmani.
Okay, so because in the script you have avidyayatmani, that's why.
Avidyayatmani?
Yeah.
Vidya, the avidya is their lack of knowledge, right? Avidya. So that is the first portion of it. Avidyayatmani.
Okay.
So there is is it long, Rajesh? Avidya?
Avidyayatmani.
Oh, my book has only Avidyayatmani.
Yeah, you have to add a there. So it's avidyaya. It's 2 words. Think of it as 2 words. Avidyaya atmani. Okay, 2
இன்னொருத்துல
words.
இப்படிதான் இருக்கு.
ஆமா, அது total 2 words. But அங்க S symbol மாதிரி இருக்கு இல்லையா? Sanskrit, at least I don't know how it is in other language. So you kind of say it together. Avidyayatmani.
Okay. I thought it is avidyayatmani, you know.
Avidyayatmani. The Y sound has to still be heard. Avidyayatmani.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yadhyesho parata devi, comma, maya vaisharadi matihi, sampanna eveti viduhu. So put a visarga and comma there, viduhu. Next line, that ir which is on top of that mahimni will go away. So mahimni swe mahiyate. So it's kind of talking, about the same thing, this illusion that you're actually having about this. When that actually goes away eventually, and we'll talk about how a little bit later, when that goes away, then you'll become knowledge. You will have a knowledge about it. And that's what, when you become enlightened or self-realized, you will realize that it is actually these various layers are there, which you will come to the realization. Yadhesho parata devi maya vaisharadi matihi sampanna eveti viduhu mahimni swe mahiyate.
यद्देशो परदा देवी माया वैशारधीमधिः सम्पन्न एवेति विदुः महिम्नि से महीयते. यद्देशो परदा देवी माया वैशारधीमधिः सम्पन्न एवेति विदुः महिम्नि से महीयते.
यद्देशोपरता देवी माया वैशारति मतिः सम्पन्न एवेति विदुः महिम्नि स्वे महीयते. यद्देशोपरता देवी माया वैशारदी मतिः सम्पन्न एवेति विदुः महिम्नि स्वे महीयते.
We'll do one more. Evam janmani karmani, comma, hyakartur ajanasya. You can, if you want, you can break it that ra. Hyakartur ajanasya cha varnayanti sma kavayo, comma, veda guhyani hritpatehe. So it just talks about the learned people, whoever is describing all these incarnations of the Lord, are just saying the Lord is born, the Lord goes away, right? Krishna is born, Rama is born. You see, you cannot describe the born and going away in the context of how humans are born and humans are going away, right? So that's what they're kind of saying there. They're using these words because it is easy for us to understand, but the Lord does not have any birth, he does not have any death or anything, that he's not bound by the material laws that all of us are, demonstrating. But they are all saying this so that it's easy for it to understand that the Lord is here, right? That doesn't mean he was born, right? He's not bound by the karma like most of all of us are. So you cannot literally take it in that meaning. Evam janmani karmani hyakartur ajanasya cha varnayanti sma kavayo veda guhyani hritpatehe.
एवं जन्मानि कर्माणि ह्यकर्तरजनस्य च वर्णयन्ति स्म कवयो वेदगुह्यानि हृत्पदे. एवं जन्मानि कर्माणि ह्यकर्तरजनस्य च वर्णयन्ति स्म कवयो वेदगुह्यानि हृत्पदेः.
एवं जन्मानि कर्माणि यहर्दुर् अजनस्य च वर्णयन्ति स्वकवयो वेदगुह्यानि हृत्पतेः. एवं जन्मानि कर्माणि यकर्दुर् अजनस्य च वर्णयन्ति वर्णयन्ति स्म कवयो वेदगुह्यानि हृत्पतेः.
Hare Namaha. We'll stop here. I think we may want to consider making this an hour and a half if it works for everybody. Because I was thinking I'll be able to finish this chapter today, but I think we're running out of time, right? So,
Rajesh, 2 to 3:30 வச்சுக்கலாமா?
that's what I'm thinking. I'll put a
Because
message
pre
in the group.
வச்சதுன்னா ரொம்ப அண்டர்கட்டாச்சு அவன் சாப்பாடு அது முடிச்ச உடனே மாதிரி ஆயிடும் அது 1:30. Maybe too early.
No. Yeah, we'll do 2 to 3:30 only. We won't prepone it,
Sure,
but
sure,
we may
sure.
have to see if we can make it 90 minutes, right? Otherwise, we're not able to cover enough content. Because Aprama, next chapters, because there's a lot of meaning that comes, and I don't want to skimp on the meaning also, right? So,
Sure,
anyway,
sure.
Shri
Adish, if you want to
Hare.
continue for another finish பண்ணனும்னா நீங்க finish பண்ணிடலாம். I'm available.
I don't know if people are available because it's the last minute, right?
I'm there.
Can continue, most of you?
Yeah.
Everybody okay? Anandji,
Yes.
you're okay?
We are okay.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So let's go, right? Let's go till 3:30 today. Okay. Where we are 36. Sava idam vishwam amogha leelaha, comma, srijatya vatyati na sajjatesmin, ijjandija sajjatesmin, bhuteshu chantarhita atma tantraha, comma, shat vargikam jigrati shat guneshah. So he's kind of talking here that, the Lord the Bhagavan who we are describing, he's always spotless, right? He does not have any malam in that. He's completely spotless. He's the master of the Shat Gunesha, of the 6 gunas. That's why he's called as a Bhagavan, because you have to have the 6 gunas, attributes is always there. And he's the one who's actually, he's the one who creates the universe, who maintains them, like you've already seen that. So kind of describing about this, and he's saying he's always there inside all other living being. Although we describe him as everything, he's also there inside everybody. Savaidam vishwam amoghalīlah srijatyavatyatti na sajjatesmin bhuteshu chantarhita atmatantrah shadvargikam jigrati shadguneshah.
सवा इदं विश्वममोघलीलः सृज्यद्यवत्यति न सज्जतेऽस्मिन् भूतेषु चान्तर्हितात्मतन्त्रः षाडार्गिकं जिग्रति षड्गुणेशः
Shadvargikam.
षड्वर्गिकं सवा इदं विश्वममोघलीलः सृज्यत्यवत्यति न सज्जतेऽस्मिन् भूतेषु चान्तर्हितात्मतन्त्रः षड्वर्गिकं जिग्रति षड्गुणेशः.
सवाइदं विश्वमोगलीलः सृज्यत् वत्यत्ति न सज्जतेऽस्मिन् भूतेषु चान्तर्हितात्मतन्त्रः षड्वर्गिकं जिग्रति षड्गुणेशः. सवाइदं विश्वम
Amogha.
Okay. Savaidam vishwam ஒட்டுக்கா சொல்லணும்னா விஸ்வம்.
You break it, it's easier. Savaidam vishwam amoghalīlah.
Vishwam, okay, got it. Savaidam vishwam amoghalīlah srijyat vadyanti na sajjatesmin bhūdeshu chantarhita atmatantrah shadvargikam jigrati shadguneshah.
And the first line is Shubha, srijatya vatyati. And the it and the kadasi it and thi, there are 2 it, right? So srijatya vatyati.
Oh, srijatya vatyati.
Srijatya comes in one word, one flow.
Srijatya vatyati. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
So the double ta is only coming at the very end, not in the beginning.
Sure.
Okay. 37. Na chasya kaschin nipunena dhatuhu. So the ra that is there, you remove it, put a visarga, comma, dhatuhu. Avaiti jantuh kumanisha utihi namani rupani mano vachobihi, comma, santanvato natacharyam ivagnyah. You can break that ma, natacharyam ivagnyah. So they say, the normal people, he says the foolish people, which I think all of us are, majority are novices, who do not have the full knowledge here, who cannot understand the true form of the Bhagavan and everything and the activities. So they now look at, all the activities which are happening, the names that are there, we say Rama, Krishna, all these avatars, all the things that the Lord is actually wearing, the things he's carrying, and the acts he's actually doing. So we all think of it, but what we don't realize is it's like watching an actor who's playing a drama, right? We saw this person playing this role today. We see the person playing some other role tomorrow, but it's the same person. He says it's very difficult for us to comprehend all of that, but that is how you have to think of all of this. Na chasya kaschin nipunena dhatuhum अवैति जन्तुः कुमनीश ऊतीः नामानि रूपाणि मनोवचोभिः सन्तन्वतो नटचर्यामिवाज्ञः
चास्य कञ्चिन्निपुणेन दातुः अवैधजन्तुकुमिनीषु ऊदिः नामानि रूपाणि मनोवचोभिः तन्दन्नतो नटचर्यामिवाज्ञाः
इवाज्ञः
अवाज्ञाः
इवाज्ञः there's no r then there इवाज्ञः
अवाज्ञः न चास्य कञ्चिन्निपुणेन दातुः अवेदि जन्तुकुमिनीषु ऊदिः नामानि रूपाणि मनोवचोभिः तन्दोन्नतो नटचर्यामिवाज्ञः
न चास्य कश्चन निपुणेन दादुः वै अवैति जन्तु कुमनीष ऊतिः नामानि रूपाणि मनोवचोभिः सन्तन्वदो नटचार्यमिवाज्ञः न चास्य कश्चन निपुणेन तादुः वदै वदीतु अवैधि जन्तु कुमनीष ऊतिः नामानि रूपाणि मनोवचोभिः सन्तन्वदो नटचार्यमिवाज्ञः.
So on the last, the first line, last word, utihi. U is also long, T is also long. Okay, utihi. And then the last word, natacharyam.
Natacharyami bhagya.
Yeah, natacharyami bhagya.
Natacharyami bhagya.
Sa veda dhatu padavim parasya, comma, duranta viryasya ratanga panehe yo mayaya Santatayanu that's one word. Santatayanu comma, bhajeta tatpada saroja gandham. So this Lord who we say is so difficult to describe, is beyond all this, we cannot contemplate. So how do you know what the true strength of it? He says only the person who has, like we saw even before also, the uninterrupted service which you has without any, without any reservations, right? Without any conditions, and having an uninterrupted bhakti towards bhajeta tatpada saroja gandham, towards the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, towards the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, who carries Rathanga Pani, who carries the wheel of the chariot. Because in Krishna in Mahabharata, in the Mahabharata Yuddham, he took the chariot in his hand, right? Referring to him, saying to that Krishna who carried the wheel of chariot in his hand, one who has an uninterrupted bhakti, he or she will be able to understand, that pure, the understanding of the Lord, because you will automatically understand that Supreme Lord eventually. Right? But that is the only way to realize it. It's very difficult for us to comprehend through knowledge alone because it's beyond our understanding. Saveda dhatuh padavim parasya duranta viryasya ratanga panehe yo mayaya santatayanu bhajeta tatpada saroja gandham.
Saveda padavim parasya duranta viryasya ratanga panehe यो मायया सन्ततमयानुवृत्त्या भजेत तत्पादसरोजगन्धम् तवेददातु पदवीं परस्य दुरन्तवीरस्य रदाङ्गपाणेः यो मायया सन्ततयानुवृत्त्या भजेत तत्पादसरोजगन्धम्
सवेददातु पदवीं परस्य दुरन्तवीर्यस्य रदाङ्गपाणेः यो मायया सन्ततयानुवृत्त्या भजेत तत्पाद सरोजगन्धम् सवेददातु पदवीं परस्य दुरन्तवीर्यस्य रदाङ्गपाणेः यो मायया सन्ततयानुवृत्त्या भजेत तत्पाद सरोजगन्धम्.
अतेह धन्या भगवन्त इत्थं, yet Vasudevekila, it's yes Vasudeve Akhila, but it comes together. Yet Vasudevekila Lokanathe Kurvanti Sarvatmakam Atma Bhavam. If you want to break it, that Sarvatmakam Atma Bhavam, Na Yatra Bhuyaf Parivarta Ugraha. This is only by making, such inquiries with your mind and having that, complete devotion, you'll be able to understand this, who is the proprietor of the universe, and then that will guarantee you 100% immunity from birth and death. So with this, the Shaunaka is, the Sutta, the Rakshit Sutta Puranika is answering the questions. He kind of described all the avatarams. He described very quickly as an executive summary what the Lord does in each of the avatarams and what the greatness of it is, and saying the questions you asked are perfect questions. He says these are the kinds of questions you have to ask, because by asking these questions, you are getting more and more deeper into understanding of the Lord, and just that is the only way you will be able to get it, and not by just sitting and no, it's very difficult to comprehend otherwise. He's kind of wrapping up that conversation. Ateha dhanya bhagavanta ittam yadvasudheve kila lokhanathe kurvanti sarvatmakam bhavam na yatra bhuyah parivarta ugraha.
Adehadanya bhagavanta iddham yadvasudeve khilaloganade kurvanti sarvatmakam bhavam na yatra bhuyah parivarta ugraha. Adehadanya bhagavanta iddham yadvasudeve khilaloganade kurvanti sarvatmakam bhavam na yatra bhuyah parivarta ugraha.
Ateha dhanya bhagavanta itam yatvasudeve kilakona yatvasudeve kilalokanate kurvanti sarvatmakam atmabhavam na yatra bhuya parivarta ugraha. Ateha dhanya bhagavanta itam yatvasudeve kilako
Yadvasudeve kila
பெரியதா வருது எனக்கு. யத்வாசுதேவே கில தேவே கில லோகநாதே குர்வந்தி சர்வாத்மகம் ஆத்மபாவம் நயத்ர பூய பரிவர்த்த உக்ரஹ.
Idam Bhagavatam Nama, Puranam Brahma Sammitam Uttama Shloka Charitam, Chakara Bhagavan Rishihi. So he's kind of continuing, and he's also a little bit going to be answering what happens after Krishna leaves, which we already saw in the Mahatmyam description also, but he's also answering this question. He's saying this Bhagavatam, this kind of Srimad Bhagavatam, is nothing but Brahma Samhitam. He's the incarnation of the Lord in words, right? So we saw the Lord incarnated as a tortoise. He incarnated as a fish. So we are saying, okay, the Lord can incarnate in animal forms. Then we saw the Lord incarnated as Rama, which is like a human form. And Krishna also came in human form only. So here he says, but if the Lord has to incarnate in words, then that is Bhagavatam, right? That's what I think. That's why it's Brahma Samhitam. It is literally the Lord's incarnation in words, and this is compiled by, of course, Vyasa, who is also the incarnation of the Lord, right? Because we saw the Vyasa is also incarnation of the Lord. So he himself came in that form to write this about it. And then this is Nishreyasam. This is all for the ultimate good of everybody who is there. And then it'll, it's all perfect. It is, all blissful and blessed. It's kind of describing the greatness of Bhagavatam here. So, Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishihi.
Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhidam Uttama Sloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishihi. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhidam Uttama Sloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishihi.
Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uddama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishihi. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uddama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishihi.
Nishreyasaya Lokasya, Dhanyam Swastyayanam Mahate Tadidam Grahayamasa, Sutam Atmavatam Varam. He says this Vyasadeva, who then compiled it, delivered to his Sutam. He delivered it to his son, right? Shuka Brahman, who is, like we already discussed, already started in the beginning also, he said several times, who's beyond the self-realized, right? He's the ultimate, is a very respected person out there. And what he's done is he's extracted the cream out of all, like we saw in the, there's like the fruit which is coming out of the trees or the Vedas. Similarly, he says it's the cream of all the Vedic literatures and everything which is there. He extracted the cream and gave it to his son, Shuka Brahman here. Nishreyasaya lokasya dhanyam swastyayanam mahate tadidam grahayamasa sutam atmavatam varam.
Nishreyasaya lokasya dhanyam swastyayanam mahate tadidam
Swastyayanam.
तदिदं ग्राहयामास सूदमात्मावदाम्बरां
सुतम् आत्मवताम्बरम्
सुधर्मात्मावदाम्बरां निःश्रेयसाय लोकस्य धन्यं स्वस्त्ययनं महद् तदिदं ग्राहयामास सुधमात्मावदाम्बरम्
निःश्रेयसाय लोकस्य धन्यं स्वस्त्ययनं महत् तदिदं ग्राहयामास सुगमात्मवताम्बरं निःश्रेयसाय लोकस्य धन्यं स्वस्त्ययनं महत् तदिदं ग्राहयामास सुधमात्मवताम्बरं
सर्व Vedetihasanam. So Sarva Veda Itihasanam. Okay, but it becomes one word. Sarva Vedetihasanam, comma. Saram Samudhritam. Satu Samshravayamasa. That's also you cannot break it. Samshravayamasa, comma. Maharajam Parikshitam. She says Vyasa gave it to his Sutam, he gave it to Shuka Brahma. So Shuka Brahma, who then took this great Bhagavatam and he gave it to Emperor Parikshit, right? Who was surrounded by all the sages on the bank of Ganges, was awaiting death without taking any water or food or anything. He completely was fasting and then he was waiting for his death. So at that time, Parikshit transferred. So he's kind of summarizing that. Sarva Vedetihasanam Saram Samudhritam Satu Samshravayamasa Maharajam Parikshitam.
सर्ववेदेदिहासानां सारं समुद्रतं सदु संस्रावयामास महाराजं परीक्षितम् सर्ववेदेदिहासानां सारं समुद्रतं सदु संस्रावयामास महाराजं परीक्षितम्
सर्ववेदेतिहासानां सारं समुद्रुदं सदु श्रावयामास महाराजं परीक्षितं सर्ववेदेतिहासानां सारं समुद्रुदं सदु संश्रावयामास महाराजं परीक्षितम्
Prayopavishtam Gangayam, comma, Paritam Paramarshibhihi Krishne Swadhamopagate, comma, Dharma Jnanadibis Sah. So again, some of this, like I kind of combine the meaning where he says Gangayam, where he was seated on the bank of the Ganges, where all of this happened. So this is also answering that this Bhagavatam is as brilliant as kind of, the sun. It's extremely, again, it's just brilliant, and this is arised after the departure of Krishna. Like we saw earlier, where they say Krishna told Uddhava, don't worry, I am in Bhagavatam, right? That's I'm going to be in Bhagavatam, which is what he's kind of summarizing here as well, saying after Krishna's departure, where all this religion, knowledge, everything else went for shelter, they all went for shelter in Bhagavatam. That's why, because that is kind of the torch bearer for people who are in Kali Kalam, right? Because there, he again summarizes, he's saying it's no different from Krishna himself, right? That's what we saw even in the Mahatmyam also, which is what again he's emphasizing. He's saying this is written so that when Krishna is not there, if you want to see Krishna, you have to then see Bhagavatam, because this Bhagavatam is Sri Krishna personified in that form, right? So Prayopavishtam Gangayam Paritam Paramarshibhihi Krishne Swadhamopagate Dharmajnanadibissah.
Prayopavishtam Gangayam Paridam Paramarshibhihi Krishne Sadhamopagate Dharmajnanadibissah. Prayopavishtam Gangayam Paridim Paramarshibhihi Krishne Sadhamopagate Dharmajnanadibissah.
प्रायोपविष्टं गंगायां परीदं परमहर्षिभिः कृष्णे स्वधामोपगते धर्मज्ञानादिभिः सह
and the first line is Parama Rishibhihi are the two words, okay?
Paramarshibhihi.
When it gets merged, it becomes Paramarshibhihi.
I think
it's something else, yeah.
Okay. प्रायोपविष्टं गंगायां Paridam Paramaharshibihi.
You said
Krishna.
paramaha. I'm hearing a ha
Oh,
sound.
Paramaharshibihi.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Paridam Paramaharshibihi. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Krishne Swadamopakade Dharmajnanadibhi Saha.
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 Yeah.
Saha.
Kalau nashta drishamesha, comma, puranarko dunoditaha. It's puranarko adhunoditaha. But again, that S symbol is coming. So you have to say the whole thing together. Puranarko dhunoditaha. Tatra kirtayato vipra, comma, viprasher bhuri tejasaha. I'll say the next two together because some of these meanings, the lines are not exactly divided because that arka, the sun I was talking as brilliant as the sun is all coming in this. So, kalau nashtadrishamesha puranarko dhunoditaha tatra kirtayato vipra viprasher bhuri tejasaha.
Hello, Nashtadrishamesh Puranarko Dunoditaha Tatra Kirtayado Vipra Viprasher Bhuri Tejasa Tejasaha. Hello, Nashtadrishamesh Puranarko Dunoditaha Tatra Kirtayado Vipra Viprasher Bhuri Tejasaha.
Kalau Nashtadrishamesha Puranarko Dunoditaha Tatra Kirtayado Vipra Viprasher Bhuri Tejasaha. Kalau Nashtadrishamesha Puranarko Dunoditaha Tatra Kirtayado Vipra Viprasher Bhuri Tejasaha.
Aham chadyagamam tatra, comma, nivishtas tad anugrahat or tad anugrahat. Soham vash shravayishyami, short e, comma, yatha dhitam yatha mati. So just wrapping it up, saying, like the some of these things, he's saying this is no different, and therefore he says when your question of asking where did Krishna go or what happened after Krishna, there should be no doubt that you should accept that Srimad Bhagavatam is a direct representation of Krishna, and one who can see it, it's like seeing Krishna. There should be no doubt about it. And he wraps up by saying that I personally heard Shuka Brahmam recite this to Parikshit and all the sages on the banks of it, and I heard I heard with great attention, right? And because of the Lord's mercy, I was able to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from him, and now I am going to teach the same thing to you. That's what he's saying. Sutta Puranika is saying, I'm going to teach all of you. I'm going to hear it from me just the way I learned it. Right? He's literally going to repeat, right, what Shuka Brahmam said to Parikshit later on. So that's how he wraps this up. Aham chadyagamam tatra nivishtastadanuggrahat soham vashravayishyami yatadhitam yatamati.
Aham chadyagamam tatra nivishtastadanuggrahat soham vaksravayishyami yadadhidam yadamadi. Aham chadyagamam tatra nivishtastadanuggrahat soham vaksravayishyami yadadhidam yadamadi.
Aham chadyagam tatra nivishtastadanuggrahat soham shravayishyami yatadidam yatamadi. Aham chadyagam tatra nivishtastadanugrahat soham shravayishyami yatadidam yatamadi.
Iti Srimad Bhagavate Mahapurane Paramahamsyam Samhitayam Pratamaskandhe Naimishiyopakyane Tritiyodhyayaha. Okay, this ends the class today. Shri Hare Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha. Gopika Jeevana Smaranam Govinda Govinda Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. Kayen Havacha Manasendriyer Va Buddhyatmana Va Prakrite Swabhavat Karomi Yatyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayanaayeti Samarpayami. Thank you, everyone. This completes it. I think at this rate, if we take this 90 minutes or 80 minutes, whatever, like next class, we'll be able to finish the fourth one because that is also a little over. And this we should be able to go at that pace. Okay.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you.